Welcome to another Wilderness Tamed gardening video. So this one follows on from the discussion we had in the previous video about balance. This one is about the importance of understanding what it is you want from your garden. I want to aim it particularly at new starters to gardening, and especially those with a brand new garden, brand new house. Okay, so usually what you get in a brand new house in the UK, I can't speak for other countries, the builders will scrape off all the good topsoil, stockpile it, build the house, put the minimal amount of topsoil back into the garden areas of each house, and then turf it. And they'll turf right up to the building wall and right up to the fences, so that mowing that grass is an absolute delight. There's nothing nicer than navigating a lawnmower into tight right angles between fences and brick walls. But that's what they do. So you've got a brand new house with a brand new garden. It's a blank slate pretty much. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to use the garden? And that's the thing I want to get across in this particular video is think about what you want from your garden. Is it a kid's playground? Is it somewhere for you to socialise? Is it somewhere that you just look out at it every day and think, boring? And every week during the spring, summer and autumn, you're out there with a lawnmower pushing that backwards and forwards? Or is it somewhere you want to give a little bit back? You've got a brand new house. What was that land before the house was there and the surrounding estate? Was it agricultural land? Probably. Was it greenbelt land or brownfield site? Possibly. In which case there was a lot of wildlife moved out during the development process. Do you want to attract that wildlife back in and share your space with it? Now, if you're a regular viewer to this channel, you'll know from looking at other videos of mine that I'm pretty mad keen on the wildlife side of things. Let's go back to the first few options. So you've got a brand new house, turf everywhere, and you are going to use it for the kids to run around in and for you to entertain in. So you might want to have a patio area, paving or decking. And the one thing I would say with decking is put a canopy over it, such as the one I have here. And that will help protect the timber against the elements. Plus you can sit out in it regardless of the weather. I quite often have my breakfasts sat on the deck. It's underneath a canopy, and even in wet weather can still sit out there. I also hang the washing out underneath there. Very useful. You could do the same with a patio if you wanted to, especially if the patio is up against the house. Whatever kind of seating arrangement you want to go for, make it easy to access from the house, easy to clean, out of the wind, but in a sunny spot. Spend a bit of time just sitting at the window watching the garden for the first few months or weeks and see how the light hits it. Where do you get the early morning sun? Where do you get the evening sun? Divide up sitting areas. You could have a bench against the house wall and then have a proper patio at the bottom end of the garden or up against one of the sides where the sun lingers in the evening. What about maintenance? How much time can you be bothered with and can you afford to spend in the garden? If it's not a lot, then I would consider reducing the amount of grass you have. If you can't be bothered with cutting grass, then get rid of some of the grass. Planted borders require a lot less maintenance than grass. If you want to maintain a half decent looking area of grass in the garden, you are looking at least one cut a week during the summer months when it's growing quickly. If you leave it longer than that, it becomes a pain in the neck to cut. If it's going to be well used, your kids running about on it, you're using it a lot yourself, a lot of footfall on the grass will naturally help to keep it short. If you go to any sort of local park, areas that are regularly walked on, the grass paths and things, don't require as much mowing as the areas that aren't walked on, because natural wear and tear from footfall will help to keep the grass short. So if the garden's getting well used in that respect, then yeah, that cuts down how much time you need to spend on it, working in it. So what were the other options? Socialising, kids playing. What you will find though is if there's a lot of child activity on the lawn, it's going to end up looking like centre court at Wimbledon after a fortnight of people running about playing tennis on it. It's just going to get hammered and look awful. So again, you might want to look at an alternative surface. Any kind of static play thing in a garden is, again, it's just going to knack the grass. It's going to kill it off. So you might want to think about putting in a wood chip pit to stand any play equipment on. So you want to relax in your garden. I would still strongly recommend you get rid of a fair amount of grass. If you want to reduce the amount of work you do in it so that you can relax in it, I would again recommend not so many exotic species of plants. Go for native stuff. If you're going to have wide planted borders or beds, plant them up heavily. Don't go for the Georgian style of gardening where there's a shrub, acres of bare soil around it, and then another shrub. Or the classic English front garden, and drive around anywhere in the UK and you'll see this exact same model of gardening. It's the square lawn with a narrow border around it and maybe roses 3 feet apart, and then bare soil. Generally a hydrangea in one corner. That's the token shrub. The thing I really love, annual bedding plants. And again, you might have, 5 metre by 5 metre lengths of border that wide around the lawn, and they'll buy 2 punnets of bedding plants, so they're about 6 foot apart around the borders. It's a very old school style of gardening, and it's as far removed from nature as you can get. Plants grow densely in communities, virtually like no space between them. They thrive and coexist together happily in dense, packed communities. There's no bare soil in nature. As I say, there's Georgian style of shrub, acres of bare soil. What do you do with that bare soil? You're constantly weeding it. Who has time? Who can be bothered? Most people view the garden as somewhere they've got to work. In their weekends and their days off, they think, got to cut that hedge, I've got to weed that border, I've got to cut the grass. That shouldn't be how you view your garden. It should be somewhere you want to be in. But they, rather than sit in their gardens and enjoy their gardens, they'll pay entry fees to National Trust or English Heritage and go and wander around their gardens. Or visit a local Wildlife Trust nature reserve. Why not turn your garden into a nature reserve? Which brings us neatly to the other option, how to share your space with nature. You use native species to your country, wildflowers, shrubs and trees. Why? Because all the native insects in your country have adapted over a Brazilian years, I do like that phrase, to living on and in and off those flowers and shrubs and trees. And all the other animals up the food chain will benefit from those insects that are attracted to your garden because you've used native plants. So there's a massive craze at the minute in the UK for bee and butterfly friendly gardens. And people go out and buy buddleia or hybrid scabious and just other stuff that's not native. So whilst you're providing, these things provide a nectar source for bees and butterflies, but they don't provide a food source for caterpillars. No native UK butterfly is going to lay its eggs on buddleia. It's going to come and get high as a kite feeding on the nectar because it's quite addictive to them. But they're going to have to fly off somewhere else, probably out of your garden, in order to find somewhere to lay their eggs for the next generation. Now, people don't like caterpillars, and I can't understand it. Caterpillars are funky, fascinating, amazing looking things. Tortoiseshells, peacocks, red admirals, I think painted ladies, could be wrong, lay their eggs on nettles, stinging nettles. Now, the stinging nettle is not a particularly fabulous looking plant. It's a food supply of half a dozen different butterfly species. Let's think of other things. What other butterflies? Speckled wood, some of the blues, orange tips, brimstones, they all require quite specific native plants as food plants, not just for the nectar for the adult, but for little munchy caterpillars. There's all sorts of stuff you can do in the garden to benefit wildlife. I mean, just planting up native wildflowers is a massive step forward, and you could just leave it at that. But why not have a few native trees if you've got room, or just native shrubs? Some of the viburnums, Euonymus europaeus, it's a stunning looking shrub, really funky flowers, like these. Have we got that?
Yep.
The autumn colour's good, it's a handsome shrub. Holly, it's great, nice berries in the winter, it's protective, it's a good roosting shrub or tree for birds. So there's all sorts. And of course, not forgetting, put a pond in. It doesn't have to be big. Like this one, for example. Did that work? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, put a pond in. People think, too much work. Well, the actual installation of a pond can be a lot of hard work. But once it's in, it doesn't take a lot of looking after. I've got 3 ponds out there. None of them have pumps or filter systems, and they all maintain themselves. Why do they maintain themselves? Because of balance. Talked about that before. If you were paying attention, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I've got my garden to a stage where it's pretty self-managing. Other than scything twice a year, which takes me all of 20 minutes each time, half an hour max if you include the raking up. So an hour a year. Would you like your garden to only require 1 hour a year in order to maintain? It's entirely up to you. Think about what you want to get out of your garden, and that will help you come to a decision about how much you have to put into it. Because quite often, with the right choice of plants and the right design, you get a lot more out of your garden than the effort you put in. And to my mind, that's how it should be. If it's not relaxing, you're not doing it right. And on that happy note, I shall bid you all farewell until the next exciting instalment of Wilderness Tamed. Is that alright? Shall I use the phone to turn the camera off?